Yesterday, I dropped the biggest needs for every NFC team heading into the offseason. Today, you get the glaring holes for every AFC team. Now, I will be referencing the salary cap, but keep in mind how much cap space certain teams have will start to change pretty quickly, specifically the teams who are over the cap and need to free up money. For example, the Dolphins already started releasing players like Raheem Mostert and Kendall Fuller. Speaking of the Dolphins, let's just start with the AFC South. Yeah, I know they're not in the AFC South, but that's what we in the biz call a psych. You got psyched out. Also, we all know the Dolphins should be in the South and the Colts should be in the East. But that's neither here nor there. Also, I like to start with the most boring division, so you have to watch this video longer. The AFC South, the Texans. Their biggest need? Wide receivers who can survive a full season. They could certainly use one of those given that Tank Dell is out next year and Stephon Diggs is a free agent.
Cardi B is spotted out with NFL star Stephon Diggs again.
But if I'm the Texans, I'm going all in on keeping CJ Stroud upright and fixing an offensive line that gave up 54 sacks a year ago.
Won't happen again, man. Sorry about that.
Address the line. Then, if you can, find a running mate for Nico Collins, and the Texans could be back to 2023 form in no time.
It's a lot of meat on the bone, man.
Collins was the only receiver for Houston with over 700 yards last year, and he missed time with injury, and I think someone like Chris Godwin would fit in rather nicely, especially in the injury rehab room. They only have $1.6 million cap space, so expect them to address their offensive line needs in the draft. Houston also desperately needs a running back who can make plays when Joe Mixon is not on the field. Someone to keep opposing defenses honest. I haven't seen anyone suggest this as a need, but I fucking think it's a massive one. Then we've got the Colts. I would say quarterback might be the pick here, but it doesn't seem at this point like the Colts are going to move on from Anthony Richardson before next season.
Yeah.
And it feels like the right move given the lack of options on the market. Even then, Chris Ballard came out recently and said Richardson hasn't proven he can play 17 games, which is 100% true, but also an admission that they'll likely add a quarterback in free agency, just like they did last offseason. And I think that guy could end up actually being Justin Fields. I also think they could use a good corner or two. This is a defense that gave up the fourth most net passing yards in the league. And while they do have a great nickel corner in Kenny Moore, they need another guy on the boundary. And if you ask Pat McAfee, their biggest need is everything. Everybody fucking sucks on their roster, except for Michael Pittman. He likes Pittman. But I think a big hole for the Colts is tight end. Mo Alley Cox started the most games for Indy last year at the position. Cox, Granson, and Alec Ogletree combined for 2 touchdowns and 438 yards. It feels like Indy's last good tight end was Dallas Clark. The Colts should draft a corner at pick 14, maybe Will Johnson or Jahdae Barron. But knowing my luck, they snaked the second best tight end in the class in Colston Loveland. The Jaguars' biggest need? Well, they might have fixed it, right? They ousted Trent Baalke, got a new head coach, and it feels like everything else they add this offseason is just the cherry on top. Now, they still need a GM, you know, just the guy who addresses the team's biggest needs. But they could build a strong defensive interior to complement Josh Hines-Allen and Trayvon Walker. And one guy to keep an eye on for basically every team is Eagles defensive tackle Milton Williams, who's only 25 and was, of course, excellent in the Super Bowl. BJ Hill or DJ Jones may also be available. Getting a BJ or seeing a DJ, regardless, you're gonna have a good time. The Jags finished the season with just 6 interceptions last year, and a better push up front could help those numbers, but so would a ball hawk in the secondary. No one on the Jags defense had more than a single pick last year. They need a guy who's there to take the ball away and flip the field, because they also had the worst average drive starting position in the NFL, typically getting the ball on offense at the 28-yard line. That doesn't help Trevor Lawrence at all. I also want the Jags to lead by example and show us world peace is possible and trade for Texans linebacker Azeez Al-Shaair, who nearly decapitated Trevor Lawrence last season. At pick 5, the Jags are right on the fringe for Mason Graham. It feels like they will take him or the best available offensive lineman at 5. Will Campbell or Mason Graham? One of you will be a Jacksonville Jaguar. The Titans' biggest need? Yeah, let's be honest, this quarterback. Fuck, Will Levis is a joy to watch, just not for Titans fans. Here's the good news. They have their pick of any QB in this draft class. The bad news? They have their pick of any QB in this draft class. It's a bad year to need a quarterback, but maybe they can make something out of Cam Ward. The only thing the Titans were really great at last year was their field goal kicking, but even then, Nick Folk is about to be 41 years old by the end of next season. They also lack youth on the outside. Calvin Ridley was a 1,000-yard receiver at 30 years old, and their breakout star at the position was Nick Westbrook-Akine, who had 9 touchdowns, but somehow less than 500 receiving yards. Luckily for them, their division rival Jags were the only team dumb enough to interview their former GM, John Robinson. You know, the guy who put them in this hellhole by trading A.J. Brown and drafting Treylon Burks, who has produced 699 yards. No, not last season, in the last 3 seasons combined. Edge rusher, also a big need for Tennessee. It's why you keep seeing the best edge rusher in this draft class mocked to them in Penn State's Abdul Carter. That's lovely if you think Will Levis is the guy, or if maybe your plan is to sign Sam Darnold in free agency. There are a handful of teams who are an elite edge rusher away from being a contender, but it's never the team with the first pick in the draft. We are so close to hitting 710,000 subscribers here. Please consider subscribing to this channel. It's the only way I measure my self-worth. Oh shit. Today's episode is sponsored by Underdog. We are 75 signups away from hitting 5,500 signups on Underdog. Just use my code THATSGOOD if you want to play in the best daily fantasy or pick'em games out there. Look, the Chiefs didn't three-peat, and we didn't hit 7,500 signups, so I did not attend their victory parade, but to show my support for your loyalty, I feel like I owe it to you. So if we still hit those 7,500 signups, I will agree to an Eagles-themed punishment, maybe make some suggestions, and I'll consider the top 3 most liked comments for Eagles punishments in the comments, but we still got to hit 7,500. We have till after the draft to get to 10K. There's still time. The AFC East, the Patriots' biggest need, the name of the game for them is protecting Drake May. It's priorities 1, 2, and 3. If you can accomplish that, get him an actual weapon to throw to, you might be all right. Kayshawn Booty wide open came on when May entered the lineup, but they need a threat at wideout, especially after it looks like they blew the Jalen Polk pick a year ago. The Patriots have $123 million cap space and just 9 unrestricted free agents. Booty wide open! There's not a team in the league in a better spot than New England this offseason in terms of cash capital and draft capital. That said, usually the team with the most cap space is as bad as the Patriots were.
The only thing free agents care about is green, and it's not natural grass.
But I expect a quick turnaround from the Pats. Their approach is simple. Overpay the best available guard and tackle in free agency, and then draft Mike Vrabel, the most Mike Vrabel-like player in this draft class, Michigan's defensive tackle Mason Graham. Travis Hunter, like Vrabes, did play both ways, but when the Titans were good, it was their defensive line leading the way. Or maybe a QB falls to 4. If that happens, trade back with the Raiders or Jets and draft Drake May, the next Gronk and Tyler Warren. The point? The Patriots might have 50 holes to fill, but they got 51 dicks to fill them. Booty wide open! The Bills' biggest need? Corner, depth at corner, and for James Cook to stop asking for $15 million per year, even though he's totally worth every penny. Once Christian Benford got hurt against Kansas City, their defense was effectively toast. Rasul Douglas has lost his pick 6 magic, and Kaiir Elam, a massive bust at corner. They also need to watch what Philly did to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl and copy their homework. First, actually push Josh Allen on the quarterback sneak. Then get to Mahomes without sending extra rushers and get an early lead so you don't succumb to bullshit from the refs. Now, you can make an argument that the Bills could use a true number one receiver, but of course I'm saying that after Josh Allen won the MVP without a single 1,000-yard receiver. I don't think they need to extend themselves after picking Keon Coleman with their first pick last year, but they need a step forward from Coleman as well as Dalton Kincaid, who had a disappointing season after a great rookie debut. Don't forget, tight ends do take 2 to 3 years to typically develop. Von Miller probably gets released, and I think the Bills need to find a true game wrecker on their defensive line. They want to be a 4-man pass rush unit, but they don't have the guys up front who actually allow for that. Be aggressive, Buffalo. Trade up to get your man in the draft with one of your 10 picks. And if you don't, find a different way to coach your fucking defense when you're in the playoffs, McDermott. Admit your bullshit's not working in the playoffs, Sean. The Jets. Biggest need, quarterback. Aaron Rodgers is not returning to the Jets, and for the 1,000th year in a row, they are stuck without a franchise signal caller in a division that now has 3. Do I think they address it this year? Probably not, honestly. If I'm the Jets, I'm doing whatever I can to get to the front of the line for Arch Manning. Given the Jets' luck, though, I'm sure they'll have the first pick next year, and Arch will then return for his senior year, becoming the first $20 million per year NIL QB who has his own show on ESPN. Ultimately, I'd say their big need is patience, especially for Aaron Glenn. We saw what happened in Detroit when they were patient in their rebuild. So do the same thing with Aaron Glenn, New York. The irony, of course, is the best quarterback in free agency is probably going to be Sam Darnold. Imagine the chaos if he returned. If I had to pick a secondary need, it's corner, opposite Sauce if DJ Reed leaves, and a safety if Chuck Clark and Ashton Davis leave. The Jets will free up cap space with the post-June Rodgers release and Devontae Adams release. If you fire your head coach mid-season, maybe the dumbest thing you can do is be a buyer at the NFL trade line. And you were, Jets. You were that dumb. The Dolphins need Tua to not have an annual death wish. Safety Brandon Jones left last year in free agency. Javon Holland is a free agent now. Safety should only be your biggest need if you're in a window. And maybe the Dolphins are. They also released 32-year-old running back Raheem Mostert. A couple injuries last year ruined Mostert's season. Mostert's old for a running back, but he didn't start getting carries really until 2019. I think he has some tuna left in the Dolphin can. Their needs are clear. It's guard, tackle, and defensive line. They got to get better up front. Calais Campbell set to be a free agent. Bradley Chubb will be back from injury. Jalen Phillips is recovering from a torn ACL. They did draft Chop Robinson last year, but if you are banking on any of their edge players surviving a season, then I have a meme coin I'd like to talk to you about. It's called Fuck the Coins, and you'll receive a free one inside every bag of Fuck the Refs coffee. The world's best-selling coffee devoted to fucking the refs. Benchwarmershop.com. It's always available. And after releasing Kendall Fuller and Durham Smythe, Miami is still $7 million over the cap, and they have almost nothing to show for it. The Saints of South Beach, as they're known, they need a great draft, and they have 10 picks to work with. Start by drafting Texas tackle Kelvin Banks at 13. I'd trade Tyreek Hill as well. He's about to fall off the proverbial wide receiver cliff, and with all of his children, he's going to ask for more fucking money soon, too. Injuries are becoming an issue in terms of slowing Hill down, and there would be a decent market for him. Kansas City nearly three-peated after trading Tyreek Hill, so maybe you guys could win a game in the cold if you move on from Tyreek. Then we got the AFC North. The Steelers' biggest need is to chill out. On Dave Damashek's podcast, Daniel Jeremiah said that the Steelers looked tired and slow to close out the 2024 season because they were too aggressive in training camp. So tell Mike Tomlin to ease up. It's a 17-game season, and they're probably a playoff team given their history, so stop running practices like it's 20-8. Also, they need a quarterback. They did call the Jags, allegedly, to see if Trevor Lawrence was available for trade.
I have a no trade clause in my contract, so I would know about it if I was getting traded or if that was something that was gonna happen.
I'd sign Justin Fields to a 2-year deal if possible, Pittsburgh, or finally commit to just sucking. I imagine Najee Harris leaves in free agency due to the success of Saquon Barkley, King Henry, and Josh Jacobs. I think the running back market is trending up, and I don't know if the Steelers want to spend that kind of money at that position when they have Jaylen Warren on the roster and can add a back via the draft. I'd also recommend drafting a receiver without character concerns. Maybe you trade George Pickens, but until the Steelers fix their QB situation, they are in the least sympathetic state of purgatory in sports history.
The Pittsburgh Steelers exited the playoffs,
winning records and first-round playoff exits. They won't sign Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers may still be a better passer than, say, Justin Fields, but I think a dual-threat quarterback is easier to win with right now in the NFL, only because that's exactly what the comp is for the Steelers and their early season success with Fields. Aaron Rodgers had better weapons in New York and still got wrecked. Your biggest need, Pittsburgh, is to suppress the urge to bring in Aaron Rodgers. The Bengals, their biggest need for their owner and GM to understand the salary cap better than Joe Burrow, who admits he doesn't understand it at all.
You could convert some of the money to a signing bonus.
Just some defense, any sort of impact player would be good, for the love of God. Trey Hendrickson wants to be paid, and linebacker Jermaine Pratt now wants to be traded. This team would have cruised to the playoffs if their defense was mediocre, but instead they finished 25th in scoring, and it negated what could have been an MVP season out of Joe Burrow. They also fired defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo, who was not the problem. That's like sending your car to the junkyard because it needs a new timing belt, oil change, and cabin air filter. So congratulations, Indy. You've got a great defensive coordinator now. The Bengals are also expected to place the franchise tag on T. Higgins to try and work out a long-term deal with him. But keeping and paying T. Higgins doesn't fix your defense, does it, Cincy? The smart thing to do would be to tag and trade him, but I feel like they're going to overpay T. Higgins, and we're going to watch the same shit happen again next season. I saw this on Twitter. The Bengals have just 4 scouts. This is a team that's so cheap, it does not want to pay the guys who find them the cheapest players on earth via the draft. The Bengals' biggest need, new ownership. The Ravens, I was gonna say nothing. Considering Justin Tucker's 7 new allegations of inappropriate sexual behavior while receiving massages at 8 high-end Baltimore spas, now totaling 16, I'm going to venture to say the Ravens need a new opera singer / kicker. I was just as shocked as all of you, by the way, to learn that Baltimore has 8 high-end spas. The Ravens are one of the more complete teams in the league, if not for a pass defense that really struggled for the first half of the season, giving up the second most yards in the league. You can assume that Nate Wiggins takes another step forward. He was already very good, but they could use some depth in a secondary that's top-heavy with Marlon Humphrey and Kyle Hamilton. Tackle Ronnie Stanley needs a new contract, which will eat into the very little cap space they already have. $8 million of their dead cap hit is going to Odell Beckham Jr. I'm sorry, Baltimore. Fuck it. Bring back Hollywood Brown. I love Daniel Jeremiah's idea of drafting corner Azareye'h Thomas out of Florida State. The Ravens have 11 draft picks, so I expect them to package deals and move around a lot and address most of their needs via the draft. The Browns' biggest need? Finding Jesus. Oh shit, is everything an option? Jesus Christ, what the fuck? Here's what they need. They need to start praying. They also need to take their medicine, get off the Deshaun Watson contract as soon as it's viable, and begin what might be a very long rebuild. The Browns are way too foobar for me to single out one need, but I will say it's 100% quarterback.
Brown.
Okay.
I like how they're getting ready. I like how they move around, bro.
Also edge when they trade Myles Garrett finally, also running back and tackle, knowing injuries turned that offensive line into a spaghetti strainer last season. Sorry, Browns fans, I am praying for you, but no, I pray down, not up. So I don't know if you want my help. Finally, we've got the AFC West, my division. The Chiefs' biggest need? After watching the Super Bowl, the Chiefs' biggest need is pretty clear. They need to ban this woman from all of their games. Let me tell you, if I weren't married. Their guard, Trey Smith, is a free agent. He's the good one. Mike Caliendo is the not-so-good one.
Too, like spaghetti too. Why Hannah Montana, man? Where's your brother? Over here. Tell you what, man.
They kicked Joe Tooney out to tackle because Wanya Morris was letting people by at the same rate that the Chiefs allow their players to commit crimes. Their biggest need, probably tackle, and I expect them to aggressively pursue one in free agency. It feels like the Chiefs will ultimately overpay on a slightly above average tackle. The good news, Kansas City only has $5 million in cap space and a ton of players about to walk. That's good news for everybody else in the league, because we're all still rooting against you, Kansas City. You know that, right? Their real biggest need is figuring out how they're going to plug all of the holes that are about to open up. Some of their notable free agents, DeAndre Hopkins, Hollywood Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, they all play the same position, Justin Reed, Charles Omenihu, Nick about to be Bolton. They might target a receiver in the draft, but between Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice, I don't actually think that's a top priority. Travis Kelce might even retire, but I think Noah Gray is ready for a bigger role. That leaves edge and offensive line as their top needs. GM Brett Veach has worked his magic before, and it feels like Kansas City pushed their chips all in for the three-peat. This offseason may be more of a reset year as they build for the next 5 years after. Or they could just restructure Patrick Mahomes' contract and free up $28 million cap space overnight. Fuck, that's probably what they're gonna do. Oh God, they're gonna be contending again, aren't they? Shit. The Los Angeles Chargers. After watching how their season ended, it's pretty obvious that the Chargers need a second option in the passing game that's not named Ladd McConkey. The rookie out of Georgia was excellent and should only get better. But he needs someone opposite him. Someone that's going to actually, catch the ball, preferably. I think the Chargers would be a prime candidate to go after a field stretcher like Tyreek Hill if he were to become available. It also looks like edge rusher Khalil Mack has played his last down as a Charger, so they'd also be wise to invest in a replacement at edge. God knows Joey Bosa isn't playing 16 games. Yes, I know it's a 17-game season, but he can't even get to 16. I said it last year and I'll say it again. Khalil Mack is more productive than Bosa. If this team was smart, they'd trade Joey Bosa and re-sign Mack. Mack is older, but he generated the most quarterback pressures on the team, and he missed just one game in the last 3 seasons. Bosa played in 5 games, 4 games, and just 14 last year. Now, they do have the 5th most cap space, but a staggering 27 free agents. Most are expendable, but they have a decision to make on running back J.K. Dobbins. When he wasn't on the field, they weren't as good either. I think they need to sign 2 free agent wide receivers. Bring back Keenan Allen and then pursue a guy like Chris Godwin. Try to trade for T. Higgins if you can. I don't think the Bengals are dealing. Then we've got the Raiders. The Raiders might need a life alert after hiring 90-year-old Pete Carroll. Obviously, his quarterback. Good thing they have the number 1 overall pick. Oh, fuck. They messed that up too, didn't they? Great job, Vegas. You have entered the Kirk Cousins sweepstakes. The Raiders won't get a quarterback they like sitting at pick 6 in the draft. If Tennessee is, say, willing to deal their number 1 pick, do whatever it is to get into that spot, Raiders. And that includes trading Maxx Crosby. By the time you actually get to a possible Super Bowl window, Maxx Crosby is going to be as old as Pete Carroll. The smartest thing they could do is trade Crosby right now while his value is as high as it will ever be. I still think Sam Darnold lands with Vegas, but what do I know? Nothing. Actually, Pete Carroll is probably the perfect head coach for Aaron Rodgers. He can manage an ego, and he's also super into conspiracies. And the Denver Broncos.
You know whether the quarterback is underneath, you're going to have a different feeling than when he's in shotgun.
After watching the way the Eagles manhandled the Chiefs in that big bowl game, I am convinced the Broncos just need to keep adding depth on defensive line, a position they currently are already very strong. But you can never have enough reinforcements in the trenches. Hell, if they sign Milton Williams in free agency to stack next to JFM and Zach Allen, I'll jazz in my pants. The real priority, though, is giving Bo Nix a better supporting cast. He needs a dynamic tight end, and that could come at pick 20 if the Broncos find themselves in range for either Colston Loveland or, by the grace of God, Tyler Warren. Also, Taysom Hill, set to probably be released. Yeah, Sean Payton will be interested in bringing the Stormin' Mormon back. But I covered the Broncos' needs in a full episode here, so check that out if you want to get a little deeper into the weeds on the Broncos' needs. Thanks for watching That's Good Sports. Also, if you didn't watch the NFC version, that is up here on YouTube, probably on the screen right now if you just want to click that. And don't forget to subscribe. Please, God, subscribe, or I will have no purpose.